Hello and welcome to the Fall Break Championship Draft analysis. That's what it's called, analysis. I'm Jeremy, and I am here to talk about the Fall Break Championship Draft, which was completed a couple days ago. One of the longer drafts we've had in a while. I didn't feel like it was like hung up on anybody particular, but people taking their time, which I get. I think we probably hit the clock a handful of times, but not for long. Everyone did pretty well, but everyone took their time too, which is perfectly fine. Not going to delay the season at all. But thanks for everyone for a good draft. Exciting draft. Okay, I'm going to say something at the top because I know people are going to filter in and out. I have my highest chance of getting people here, and it's going to come a couple of times through this analysis. Hidden Power is not in this format. Hidden Power is banned. Do not use Hidden Power. It is going to play into some of my analysis of these Pokemon, so keep in mind you cannot use Hidden Power. For people wondering why we can't use Hidden Power, because this tier list was made by somebody else with the idea in mind that Hidden Power would be banned, so we're going to stick with that. If we want to make changes going forward, we can, but I think this is a good baseline to kind of figure out where we're at. So, with that out of the way, we got 12 teams, double elimination bracket, going to be done in 6 weeks, crowning our first ever FBC champion. And we got some people who've taken a few seasons off, excited for Nat Dex, and we're going to hop into this. We're just going to hop in with Keenan's team here. Keenan's got one of the more interesting teams. Just from the standpoint that he took 13 Pokemon and had points left over in his cap. I really thought he was going to take the opportunity to use the Week 0 add drops to consolidate some of his Pokemon to come up with, to maybe upgrade a couple. I'm not going to go into, specific upgrades I think he should have made. But I think there's probably some points where he maybe could have made some different decisions. I do think it'll be interesting to see because he went with, I don't think there's any Pokemon on this team that are bad. I do think the power level is significantly different than it's been in the past. So having 13 pretty good Pokemon compared to some of the things that are just world beaters, I think is going to be an interesting test for him. He's got some other issues I want to address. I don't want to dunk on this team because I really haven't taken a deep dive on it. But at surface level, I see some issues. One, the power level might be a little off kilter. Palafin, granted, kind of is a weird case because these aren't Palafin stats after it gets hero form, so it could be a little different. But I think the speed tiers, speed and HP, I believe, are the same. Just the attack, defense, maybe even special attack and spit effort different. But we're going to kind of take things at face value here because usually I mostly pay attention to this column here, which I do take umbrage with because 106 is not super fast. He has a decent amount of priority and good Scarfers, which can offset that a bit. But the team's not slow enough to be... a Trick Room team, and it's not really fast enough to be threatening. It's so in the middle. I think this is gonna be a team that lives and dies by Scarfers. You're gonna see Scarf Staraptor, Scarf Evire, Scarf Porygon Z, Scarf Shandy a lot. Because I think it's just gonna be needed to kind of keep up with the rest of the league. In terms of hazard setters, he's got 2 great spinners and setters here, in addition to another good setter in Garganacl and Seismitoad. I don't think he's going to have a problem in controlling hazards if he wants to. He's also got spikes and toxic spikes coming out of Roserade. And Slurpuff even gets sticky webs. So I do think that he has a lot of good tools there, but his speed tiers are also kind of crazy because 72 being your... in the top 11, that's good that the team is it doesn't have a lot of low-end speed, but 72 is kind of an awkward spot where Pokemon because there's offensive Pokemon 60, 65, there's no reason for them to run any speed. He's going to be running into a lot of bulk to deal with, and I don't think it's going to be, I think that might be a challenge for him. And then we'll hop into the type chart in a minute here. But I do think he doesn't have quite enough top end speed, and I don't think he's got a wide enough spread on his speed tiers. So the type chart here is really kind of all over the place because he's got a lot of immunities. Look at all these zeros. It's just since he's got so many Pokemon, he's got such a wide spread here. So let's focus on the red boxes we got dealing with here, okay? Water. So he's got 1 resist, 1 immunity. I do think that is probably an issue because Palafin, you don't want to have to switch it in on a lot of decks. Oh no, he's got 2 resists. He's got Roserade here. That's a solid one. So he does have quite a few weaknesses there too, and his team's not super bulky. Like, this is kind of an offensive, like, leaning team. It's not like super offensive. There's some bulky aspects to it. But this is definitely more of an offensive team, and he doesn't have a ton of resists. He's got a crazy amount of electric immunities, though. Over-indexed on ground types between Treads, Tusk, and Seismitoad. I don't think that was the right route to go, because it does lean into these water issues. And Grass, I know that it's not a red box, but Grass is particularly interesting just because it is something that, like, Grass, it is not very threatening offensively, and there's so many, it's not like a great defensive type. So it's super easy to accidentally be really resistant to Grass. He doesn't really have it here. Like, the fact that this isn't a green box is, I feel, a little bit surprising. Ice is a difficult offensive type, and I did some additional research. So remember how in the past seasons I'd be like, oh, I got a little bit of a rocks weakness, but then there's no offensive rock types? Well, I did the work ahead of time, so here we go. I went through. These are all the Pokemon I consider, like, offensive Pokemon, maybe scary offensive Pokemon that you are likely to run a good amount of attack or special attack investment. And then I gave them a 1 in whatever their primary attacking type is. There's a couple of, like, if they have Stab and that move, or if they have something that really boosts, like, for example, Lycanroc Dusk, I gave fighting coverage to because Tough Claw's boosted close combat, and Lycanroc Dusk is very scary, even though it's not a stab type. So these are the scary types. The red types are scary: fighting, fire, electric to a certain degree. The types that aren't scary: rock, flying, normal, ice. Look how few ice type attackers there are. Arctozolt, Galarian Darmanitan, Iron Bundle, Mamoswine, Alolan Sandslash, Weavile. Now granted, all of those are very scary, maybe with the exception of Alolan Sandslash, but there's Hail on that team. So those are very scary, but they're few and far between. So I don't think you have to worry about ice types too much. And so this red box here, not too big of an issue. I think you have enough. He's got enough resistances between... No, he doesn't. Never mind. These are not resisting Pokemon. Ice types are going to threaten this team, and he's just going to have to find a way to play around that. Maybe with like a Scarf Chandelure or like a really defensive Garganacl. Maybe get up some Stealth Rocks and threaten them that way. Ground type. This is another one that you don't really want to see red. Earthquake is so spammable. It's not even that scary offensively necessarily, but so many things just get Earthquake for coverage. Got a hard time switching into it between Heracross and Staraptor being your only resists to it. Psychic, another one that's surprising to me because you just tend to accidentally have a lot of Psychic resists, right? This is just not a very good offensive type, but he happens to have a lot of weaknesses. I think this team... But you know what? This tends not to matter because this is about switching into attacks. This is an offensive team, okay? From an offensive standpoint, he's got so many options, and these immunities are going to help him find opportunities to switch in. That's a good thing. So this has upside, but you got to be perfect in your team building. With the way the league is constructed, if you come in, if you at team preview, you could just lose because you don't have the right thing. especially with a team like this that doesn't have, like, the scariest thing on this team is probably the Palafin, but Palafin needs certain requirements met for it to really do some damage, and I don't know that this team is designed to do that. So I could see Keenan struggling. I hope it proves me wrong, because it'd be interesting to see a team like this do well in this current league. I don't know if it's going to be the case, and I'd like to be proven wrong on that. Okay, moving on. At this rate, this podcast is going to be another 110 minutes, so I'm going to try to keep things a little bit tighter if I can. Moving on, we got Zane's team. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about with scary Pokemon. Top to bottom, this is such a scary team. Like, it's stuff we haven't seen in a long time. Zygarde, Tapu Lele, we've never seen. And then on top of the fact that this guy's got Terrain, he's got Sneasler, and he's got Hoopa, and he's got Hitmonlee. This is scary. Okay, so outside of just naming threats, let's look at the meat and potatoes here, okay? So, spinners. Hitmonlee, not a very good spinner. He picked up Sandslash. Also, to combine, Sandslash does have Hail here, so he can get a speed boost. Definitely a benefit. We got good hazard stackers in Ferrothorn, Araquanid, Sandslash, Overquill I believe gets Toxic Spikes, Stealth Rock's on Pinsir, but honestly Ferrothorn is going to be doing the work putting up those hazards. In terms of hazard control, we got Defog on Moltres, and we already talked about Rapid Spin. Also have Court Change on Cinderace. I don't think on a team like this that's going to be, putting up a lot of hazards. I don't think we're going to get a lot of use out of the Cinderace, in addition to the fact that probably going to have opportunities to set up Aurora Veil because of Alolan Ninetales. This team is so scary in terms of setup opportunities, and it's helped so much by Alolan Ninetales. Alolan Ninetales can come in, set up the Aurora Veil, and then hopefully just die as quick as possible. I don't think Alolan Ninetales has a way to do that, but if it wants to come in against a slower Steel type, set up Aurora Veil, and immediately die to an Iron Head, and then go hard into Sneasler, that thing can probably afford to Swords Dance twice. It's, what's the Psychic? Oh, Psychic Seed. We'll give it a Spadef boost, and it's already behind a screen, and it could probably afford a Swords Dance twice, so it's going to get a speed boost and ×4 attack, and then just crush teams. And you're going to be like, Jeremy, it can't possibly take 2 turns to set up a Swords Dance. Yeah, I think it can. I think it's going to have that opportunity. All he has to do is eliminate or weaken a Psychic type, to the point where Sneasler's going to be able to do that. I think that this is going to be a challenge to get past this team. Mega Pinsir taken late in the draft, such a terrifying setup sweeper. I do think it is a little bit hindered by the fact that Tapu Lele might be around, and the Psychic Terrain could hinder the quick attack or feint that Mega Pinsir could have. So we'll have to be careful about that, but Pinsir could be a big threat. Zygarde, obviously a huge threat. Now, if it makes anybody feel any better, he doesn't have Power Construct, just Aura Break, I believe is the ability, so essentially no ability. But Zygarde only needs to run one move. In the past, we saw the Dragon Dance and or Coil with Substitute and Thousand Arrows. Thousand Arrows hits everything. You need to have a bulky Grass type to try to deal with Zygarde. That's pretty much it. Or a bulky Bug type, I guess. But Grass is a little bit more readily available. And more generally useful. I said that Grass is not a great defensive type, but it's better than Bug. Moltres. I just ran into Moltres in a couple of Ranbats in a row. I'm so tired of getting burned. Hitmonlee can do a lot of the same sort of stuff Sneasler does, but I think that Hitmonlee has a lot better time as a just out of the box wall breaker, just going Choice Band high jump kick. Overquill I think has some upside as a setup sweeper. Hoopa's going to be so scary firing off expanding forces in the psychic terrain, and it won't be able to be affected by Sucker Punch or Shadow Sneak. Things won't be able to take advantage of that 4x weakness because of the fact that psychic terrain is going to be up, at least for priority, obviously. Sandslash we already talked about. Araquanid does one thing, but does it really well. Ferrothorn is going to be able to, it's going to be a good Pokemon that's going to be able to come in and like take the hits it needs to take and set up a spike and then switch out later. The longer Ferrothorn's around, the more spikes that are going to get up, the easier this team's job is going to be to wear you down. I think it's a really good team. Now this is also a lot more offensive based, so some of these resists don't matter. I will tell you, there are so many scary fire types in the league that this red box here scares me. Let's take a look real quick at this. Offensive fire types, 14. One of the more threatening types to have a weakness to. I do think that's a problem. Electric, I think there's a lot of, there was a lot of electric ones. Zygarde coming in on electric types, that's good. And then Ferrothorn, more opportunities for it. So this electric weakness, he can kind of turn into a little bit of a strength. Because it's the things that want to get in on electric types are going to be able to take advantage of that. Ground, another maybe issue that could be exploited. Flying, there are so few good flying types. Flying is one of the types that is highlighted red on this sheet here. Or sorry, highlighted green. There's so few good, let's see, Lucha, Kilowattrel, Moltres, which is on his team, which also probably shouldn't even get a 1 there. Mega Pinsir also on his team. So that means, and then Staraptor, Torn-T. Yeah, okay. I got confused with Thundurus for a second, but so the 6 scary fighting type or flying types that I have on this list, 2 of them are on his team. So there's only 4 that he's got to face. So this also doesn't matter. Rock, not a good offensive type. That's marked off on the list. Ghost, similar situation, kind of low. Only 7 scary ghost types in the league, and he's got one of them. So I don't think these red boxes, with the exception of the fire, are too big of a deal. It's such a threatening offensive team, it's going to be hard to check. Okay, made a little bit better time that one. Moving on, we've got Kyle and the Orlando Magikarps. Man, this team, this one's not as like outwardly threatening because it is some Pokemon that we've seen quite a bit. But I do think that it's got some good stuff going for it. Now, first of all, Weavile is always scary. Blacephalon and Munkidori to get, like, Munkidori, I feel like we saw Zach use it a couple seasons ago, and it is, like, you need to keep your Steel types alive. And against this team, your Steel types are going to be doing a lot of work, like against Mawile and Cleaver. So Munkidori is going to have weakened targets that it can pick off. Blacephalon's also going to be able to blast through a lot of your specially defensive walls. They're going to work together to kind of break down a lot of these specially defensive Pokemon and Assault Vest users on other teams and clear for each other. Speaking of another scary offensive special attacker, got Landorus Eye. So that 115 may not seem super threatening, but the fact that because of Sheer Force, it can run kind of a no drawback Life Orb is pretty wild. So I think with the Sheer Force boost, Earth Power goes to be like 120 base power move with no drawbacks and its Life Orb stab. It's a strong move, and between also Sludge Wave and Psychic and Focus Blast, those are all Sheer Force Life Orb boosted. This is a very scary Pokemon, in addition to the fact that there is no hidden power and it gets access to Nasty Plot. Wild. Mew is an absolute anomaly here because Mew is something that you can't plan for because it can run so many different sets. Like, this is a better version of Mew. This is the version of Mew we banned, because the reason we banned it in the past was because it could just run so many different utility sets in addition to so many different offensive sets. When we allowed it back in, it was because it lost all of the utility, didn't have access to any recovery. didn't have the same utility moves you used to have before. Basically, you just run Swords Dance and Nasty Plot in your coverage moves. But Mew can now play any role you need it to play. I think Kyle's used Mew before, but one of the traps that Mew kind of falls into is it ends up filling whatever hole your team is weakest at. Like, if you don't have a defogger, Mew becomes your go-to defogger. Now, Kyle has Hazard Clearing here with Cyclizar, who's kind of an all-around good utility mon. I referred to it before as basically like poor man's Tornadus. Between the pivoting and Hazard Clearing and Regenerator, it does a lot of the same stuff. But then he's got plenty of offensive Pokemon, like Mega Mawile. I mean, I haven't even talked about Mega Mawile, but this 105 attack is super deceptive. Sorry, let me pull this up over here and do a little calc, because people who didn't play in season, what season was that? Season 8 might not remember Mega Mawile and what it can do. Mega Mawile. So, at Adamant Max Attack, it has 339 attack. But not really, because actually, that number is doubled because of Huge Power. So it actually has 600 and, fast math, 78 attack, which I don't know what that's an equivalent to. Let me calc that too. 678, 252, that's to Adamant. Yeah, it's the max. It's basically the max attack in the game. If a Pokemon had 252 attack, which is the base attack, which is like the theoretical limit, and was running Adamant max attack, it would hit 663. This is stronger than any Pokemon has any right to be. Teams are going to have to identify a way to deal with it, because Mega Mawile is going to ruin you if you're not prepared for it. And on top of that, in such an offensive meta, where a setup Pokemon will be able to come in and ruin you, he has Ditto. Ditto is the anti-setup Pokemon, the anti-offense Pokemon. Oh, you have this fast Pokemon that's really threatening against my team? No, I also have it, and it's Choice Scarf, so it's faster than your Pokemon. I think he put together a really good team there. It's going to come down to utilization. He's got a little bit of that water weakness too. Not a ton of scary offensive water types. Let me check the spreadsheet here. 8. So not a huge deal, but this is an offensive team. We can only afford to take so many hits, even with good pivots like Rotom Wash and Cyclizar being your resists to it. Still something to look out for. No ground resists, just 2 ground immunities. Now that is going to come into bigger play if he happens to play Zane early on, because Zane loves this. That means no Pokemon can take hits, can resist a hit from Zygarde. But that's one Pokemon. I think the 2 immunities should be good enough for most teams. And then Rock, we already talked about Rock. Otherwise, good setup here. Kind of checked all the boxes. I think the way to go this season is going to be offense. You want to overwhelm your opponent. I think it's important to have pivots so that way you can find your opportunities to get your offense in. You need to find an opportunity to get momentum, and he has that here. Like Lando gets U-turn, so does Munkidori. Cyclizar gets U-turn. Mew is obviously a U-turn or Volt Switch. You got Volt Switch on Rotom, U-turn on Kleavor. He's got opportunities to get his heavy hitters in, and he just got to make the most of them. And then I'm going to take a real quick sip here, and then we'll get back to more. Sorry, my throat was drying out there. Moving on. We've got Papcoon. Papcoon, man, hell of a team looking at it now. So, he has, oh, you know what? I didn't look at speed tiers for these last 2 guys. Let's see if I got any notes. No, got all your bases covered. A little bit of a gap here between Cyclizar and Blacephalon, but I don't think it's too big of an issue. It's 14 points, which is just where you need it to be. And then big drop off from Kleavor to Mawile. I do think that could be a problem for him, but Ditto does weird things to kind of prevent certain speeds. So I think Ditto's probably gonna be able to make up for some of that. Yeah, so a little bit worried about this enormous drop-off here, but I think, I don't know. I don't love it. I don't love it, but you also have more top-end speed that's gonna kind of change some things. And the way this differs from Keenan's team is there's a drop-off, not quite as big, because also you don't care about things that are like 60 speed and under most of the time. So not as big of a drop-off down to like 60. Obviously, it's only 12 points, so not a huge deal. But the other problem here is there's not as much offense to kind of make up for it. Like here, there's a ton of offense that it's like if you're a little slower, like you'll be able to break through that bulk, right? Not as much on Keenan's team. So I just wanted to highlight that. So moving on, we got Papcoon. Papcoon went and took Iron Valiant, which is a Pokemon that we haven't seen in Draft League, and we're gonna learn a lot about it real fast. It's gonna be a big crash course here. I'm interested to see it. I'm glad he's kind of on the other end of the bracket from me, although my end of the bracket is no slouch. So who knows if I'll run into Papcoon and win. Okay, Iron Valiant, super scary offensively. Latios, Mega Latios, super scary offensively. 160 special attack. Dropping Dracos off of this attack stat is no joke. You're gonna have to find a way to deal with it, and it's not gonna be easy. Volcarona, known in the past as the matchup moth. You can design it to beat the things that you want. If Papcoon can be really thoughtful about what he wants Volcarona to be able to set up on, and he can design the rest of his team to be able to take out Volcarona's threats, this is going to be a big problem for things. Celebi, really interesting because I think pivoting is going to be really key. Celebi can kind of be a little bit of a detriment to that just because of the massive U-turn weakness, but the Pixies, the base 100 stat lines across the board here, never really a bad grab. Celebi is incredibly versatile, and I think it's a difficult one to use, but if you can find the right set for it, it's really gonna sing. Galarian Darmanitan, another Pokemon that we have not seen in draft format. This is now upsides and downsides to this Pokemon. For one, the upside, the ability. Obviously, basically having... So for those of you who don't know, what Guerrilla Tactics does is it basically, your ability is Choice Band. Once you click a move, you can't switch moves, but you get an automatic 1.5 boost to your attack stat. Now, this compounds with regular Choice Band, because the drawback to Choice Band is you can't switch moves. Your ability is already doing that. So there is no drawback, so it's just the extra 1.5. So now you have double the attack stat, which I'm not going to go back into the calculator, is going to be higher than Mega Mawwile's. The downside to Galarian Darmanitan is that pure ice typing. The fact that it's not going to be able to wear heavy-duty boots. I mean, it can wear heavy-duty boots, but you're just like kind of hamstringing this Pokemon. So also you can run Choice Scarf. Like, this Pokemon does best with a choice item. I think that it's a double-edged sword because you're going to need to kind of control hazards. And if you can, great. If you can't, with this team, that could be a detriment to this team. So, because also, no, never mind. I was going to say no flying immunity, but we were really looking for a ground immunity, which he has a couple of, so spikes aren't as big of a problem. And he has one of the premier spinners in the game in Excadrill, pairing that with his Bud for Life Tyranitar. Don't know why Articuno's here. Maybe you can get something out of it with Slowking, Chilly Receptioning out, but overall, I don't think so. Primarina, one of the most underrated scary special attackers in the league. No question to me. Primarina, the calcs are always terrifying. And you can even run it defensive, which you have to prepare for the offensive one, and the defensive one you have to prepare for in such a different way. It's, and by defensive I mean like bulky, like Calm Mind typically. They're both threatening, but in different ways. You have to deal with them differently. Electros just doesn't die. Electros is going to be like the most annoying Pokemon on this team because it's just going to be able to chip stuff, knock stuff off, just kind of stick around, gain some momentum. It's not an easy Pokemon to kill, and you're going to get you're going to probably get 2 or 3 moves out of it every time you bring it. And that's just kind of good value for money in this. Like, it's got good enough coverage where it's going to be able to do like 50% to something and then knock off the item on something else. Maybe get you a little bit of momentum before you sack it later. Electros is not super high value, but if you use it very strategically, you can really, it can really turn the tide of the battle. Like having, if you can like let it take a hit, get off a big hit, Volt Switcher, you turn out. Like, you've done 50% to a Pokemon, gotten rid of an item, pivoted out. You can do those 3 things, and that means you still have it as a sack in the back. You can gain momentum twice out of it. I think there's a lot of value to be reaped from this, but it's challenging to do so, okay? Taking a look at the typings. Haven't seen fairy weakness too much. There's not a ton of offensive fairies, right? 8, you know, that's not that many. Not too big of an issue. Ghost and Rock, we talked about. Poison. I don't remember seeing Poison on this list, but 9. You know, starting to get up there, but still not the worst. It's like below 10. The arbitrary metric I've put in here is probably like 10's the point where you start to get really scary. And you have most of those types that have 10 scary offensive threats or more covered. So I think that's pretty good. You know, loading up on a little bit of those fire types. The fact that this isn't green, not ideal, but you have one of the best fire resists in the game in Tyranitar. So I think you got that going for you. Speed tiers, big drop off from 85 to 61. That's a concern. But also, we're just gonna kind of keep this in the back of our mind. If every team's got this, it's less of a big deal because it's harder to take advantage of. But like, for example, let's say Papcoon, I don't know, saying Papcoon is going against Papcoon doesn't make any sense. But like, let's put these 2 teams side by side, for example. Mawile is really only running enough speed to outspeed a 0-speed Tyranitar. Otherwise, it's all going into bulk. That's not many EVs it needs to do, right? So Mawile can be pretty bulky, and it's got one of the best defensive typings in the game. On the flip side, against Papcoon against Kyle's team. Oh, they're playing each other this week. Maybe this was not a good example to do, but I've started it, so I'm going to continue. Tyranitar probably only going to run enough speed to outspeed, like, I don't even know how fast 0-speed Rotom is, but if it can't catch 0-speed Rotom, or if it doesn't care if it catches 0-speed Rotom, it's just going to run all bulk, which is going to make it significantly more difficult to kill. So that's just a illustration of why I'm concerned about this drop-off. Not the end of the world, but it's something to keep in mind in team building. Okay, on to the next one. We've got Jabron and the New England Pat Rats. Okay, man, this is a team I've thought a lot about. And I have some critiques I'd like to make. Let's look at it at face value first. First of all, got a rain team, obviously. You got Politoed, you have Basculegion using Swift Swim, Quaquaval benefiting from it, as well as Archaludon and Walking Wake. I kind of thought for a while he was also going to get Torkoal on this team. I thought that would have been an interesting way to like give Walking Wake additional benefit and also power up Ogerpon a little bit. But he decided not to go in that direction. I think that's fine, because I do think this is a team that works if he doesn't decide to bring rain. Mega Dance, he's really strong on its own. Kilowattrel, something I neglected to mention, also benefits from the rain. Kilowattrel, I think, is an incredibly underrated Pokemon. Ogerpon, Heat, or Hearthfire, I guess. Very threatening. Walking Wake, in any weather, scary. I guess not sand or, snow. That was a stupid thing to say. Stupid. Gliscor. This is what I'm talking about with like defensive pivots. Gliscor is going to be able to come in and take hits from some of these scary physical offensive attackers and pivot out and probably survive a couple hits depending on the matchup. Maybe get up rocks, spikes, a substitute. Also keep in mind, we've seen Gliscor in the past couple seasons. This one has Roost. Roost, in addition to all the other recovery that it gets, it can make Gliscor live and stick around for a very, very long time. Quaquaval, you know, what is there to say about this Pokemon? It can really snowball and get away from you and make a lot of problems. Basculegion Male, I think, is going to be most interesting in the rain, obviously. I think Basculegion Male gets adaptability. I'm not going to check right now, but I think that'll make for some interesting matchups if he wants to take advantage of the speed that the rain gives him, or just fire off adaptability rain boosted wave crashes. Either way, this team's going to do a good job of breaking down its own checks. Like, Basculegion might not be able to kill an incoming, I'm trying to think of a defense, like Toxapex is in the league. Let's say Toxapex. Not going to be able to kill Toxapex. It's going to do like 30% to it, which Toxapex is maybe not the ideal example because it's just going to be able to regenerate. But you're going to come in, Basculegion's going to do, you know what? I have a calc up over here. Let's calc it real quick. Toxapex. Sorry you guys aren't seeing this. We'll say fully Fizz Def, because why wouldn't you be against this team? I mean, maybe you wouldn't be, because there's an Ogerpon. So we're going to leave it. Basculegion, Choice Banded, does get adaptability in there. Underestimated. Choice Banded, adaptability, Basculegion's Wave Crash in the rain to a max HP Spadef, keep in mind Toxapex, to 66 minimum. So, if instead of fully Fizz Def, bold, Wave Crash is doing 51 minimum. So even if that Toxapex is holding Black Sludge, that is still a 94% chance to 2-hit KO if Fizz Def Toxapex. Yeah, this Basculegion is going to be able to break down the defensive water types. They're going to want to come in and check things like Walking Wake and Quaquaval, and that's going to suck. That's going to suck for everybody else. Now, I told you I had some critiques, okay? My problem with this is that this Politoed here. Politoed, good Pokemon. Not really. That's why they gave it Drizzle, because it's not a very good Pokemon on its own. The thing is, he could have gone and gotten Pelipper, which I think he should have. And the difference, from what I saw, he could go and get Pelipper and then pick up Tauros Aqua, or Paldean Tauros Aqua. And then you basically, instead of Quaquaval. I think that this team's going to lose some momentum due to the fact that Politoed has to be the rain setter. It's not a deal breaker, but he's going to have less opportunities to be able to set up the rain and get his other Pokemon in safely, because he can't U-turn out with Pelipper, because he doesn't have it. He's got Politoed, which I don't think, oh man, Politoed gets flip turn. My face is going to be red. Let me check real quick. I'm really certain it doesn't, but we should make sure. Looking here on the side. Flip. Turn. Illegal. Doesn't get it. Against the law. Can't have it. So, it doesn't get flip turn. I would have been embarrassed. Gonna lose some longevity there. In addition to the fact that it doesn't have reliable recovery. So it's going to get worn down a lot quicker than Pelipper would have. But I don't love that. I think there's things he could have done differently. So just got to be careful with that. From a type standpoint, now this is weird because it is a lot of water types because this is a rain team. So we do have a significant grass weakness, but you're not bringing all of these unless you're going full rain, in which case you got to overwhelm the other water types, or the grass types, right? But you also, even if they are there, you got Ogerpon and Archaludon, which will be able to come and take those hits, and Kilowattrel just well enough, and they'll be able to counter them in a way. Ghost, not a ton of scary ghost types. But interesting, not a single resist. No dark, no normal. I'm just surprised to see no dark here at all, because that seems like an easy one. Fairy, a little bit of a weakness. Really, the biggest problem is just not a lot of fairy. Like, the weakness is not as big a problem, but the lack of resists, only having Ogerpon be the only resists, I do see that as a problem when you don't have a lot of resists of a certain type. I think that can be exploitable. Like, it's not necessarily that you, like, oh, let's see a column here, for example. What's a good one? Let's go with this, with Dragon here. Sure, he's got the immunity in Diancie and Florges. You know, maybe not a good example, but if he can if he can get rid of those Pokemon, because there's immunities, I really need something with resists. Like, I don't know, Psychic. If our Chaladon's not there, or our Chaladon's burnt out, and you bring in like Tapu Lele. Oh man, Tapu Lele is gonna run wild over this team. He's just like, Politoed has to come in and take a hit from Tapu Lele, and then die, so something else can come out, and then Zane just has to try to survive long enough, right? So, do they play each other? I don't. Oh man, hold on. Let me check the bracket real quick. They might play soon, so keep an eye out for that. I think that's an interesting matchup. The fact that Tapu Lele only has to get past Ogerpon on our Chaladon, and then after that it can just click whatever stab move it feels like, scary. Definitely scary. Speed tier wise, honestly pretty good. Even that's not even considering the fact that he's got so many like speed boosting Pokemon. Like, you got Swift Swim here, you got Aqua Step here, which changes things. Walking Wake you could build to get a speed. Oh no, you speed boost in the sun. Never mind. Yeah, but solid speed tiers, really good. Moving on, we got Drew. Now, I saw a lot of discussion that Drew was drafting like a really well. I wouldn't say this is stall. Like, I can't say this is stall. This is balance. This is a balanced team. You have special attackers, physical attackers. You have support Pokemon in Hitmontop and Uxie. You have a couple of walls. Like, this isn't a crazy, like, this is a pretty defensive team. When you just look at these guys, man, what a bulky team. That's just gonna sit there and be alive for a long time. Registeel doesn't get reliable recovery, nor does Hitmontop, nor does Uxie. These guys don't make a super cohesive defensive core. This is a balanced team. Plain and simple. You have hyper off it. Like, if you just look at, if you look at these 6, wow, that's a really bulky team. Look at these 5, like, hyper offense is probably what you think is happening here. So this is a balanced team. Iron Bundle, incredibly scary. I can't think off the top of my head what Freeze Dry plus water coverage, what Pokemon actually resist that. I'm sure there are some, but that's a hard combo to get around, which is one of the reasons it was banned. In addition to that, outstanding speed, really good special attack, and honestly, really decent defense. It's hard to pick this off like with priority because it's not super frail. It's the biggest weakness is the fact that it is an ice type. Ice types can get chipped down really easily, especially because like either you force them to run boots and you lose a lot of your power and scariness, or you don't run boots and they get chipped down. That's a problem for it. Thunderous Eye, constant scary offensive threat. I don't need to really rehash this Pokemon because it's always been scary, and we'll continue to do so. Lycanroc Dusk, a personal favorite of mine. That 117 attack is so undercut by the fact that this thing gets, Stab, Tough Claws boosted to Cell Rock, Stone Edge is very strong coming from this thing, Close Combat, Psychic Fangs, Crunch. The physical moves that this thing wants to run are all Tough Claws boosted, and Tough Claws is a significant improvement. Garchomp, one of the GOATs, one of the best to ever do it in the AVL. I mean, you want to run Tank Chomp, you can. You want to run Swords Dance Scale Shot, you can. You just want to run like an all-out attacker, Scarf Chomp, you can do whatever you want. Garchomp is so versatile, and all of its sets, I don't think there's a weak set in the bunch. And to plan for a lot of them differently. Arcanine, another big switch hitter. You can run really well defensive, you can run very scary offensive. Uxie, you know, great utility, obviously pretty passive, but you need something to come, like, you need Uxie on this team. This is an important thing for this team to have is Uxie, because there are some threats in the league that have a harder time getting past defensive psychic type Pokemon, and Uxie is one of those. Mega Venusaur, one of the best walls in the game. Now, if I was going to knock something on this team, I would say the fact that Mega Venusaur's defensive partner is Registeel isn't great. Registeel is a subpar defensive Pokemon in my opinion. Mega Venusaur is so good, it really wants somebody else to, you know, really be able to take the hits there with it. Registeel's a little weak at that. But fantastic defensive Pokemon. I think that this team probably would like a Dark type, because Psychic types are going to be something that really threaten Mega Venusaur a lot. You got to be careful with it. Hitmontop, really solid Pokemon, and gives him a spinner that he's going to want because he's got good rockers, good hazard setters, and you want to be able to keep the rocks up on your side or your opponent's side of the field while clearing them from yours. Hitmontop is a very reliable spinner and can do that. Clef, another one of the defensive greats. So many ways you can go with this, just such a reliable Pokemon. I know that those stats don't look great, 95, 70, 73, 95, 90, 60. I don't know how Clef does it, but it always is able to live the hits you need it to live. Assuming you treat Clef right, she'll treat you right. Porygon 2. I'm split on this one. I feel like it's got upside, but I just feel like we haven't seen a lot of it. It's just like pretty good defensively, just not very versatile is my problem. And then Registeel, I've already said my piece on. I think it's a little limited defensively, but if you are careful, it'll take the hits you need it to take, and it does the one or two things you need it to do. It's not the best Pokemon, but by no means the worst. Look at the type chart. Only red square on this whole thing is ground. And ground is, like I said, it's really prevalent, but it's really, like, you have immunities. Every team, I haven't checked, but I'm sure every team has at least one ground immunity. It's the most plentiful immunity outside of, like, besides maybe electric. And actually, no, electric's probably even more, like, ground's still probably more prevalent. Yeah, really easy for you to have a ground immunity. But between all of your defensive Pokemon, the bottom 5 here on this list, Venusaur, Hitmontop, Clef, P2, all of them do not resist or are weak to ground. I don't love that. You're going to have to do your best to take advantage of those switch-ins that things are going to give you. Other than that, not a lot to say about the construction of the way this this type chart looks. It's well put together, and I think this is a really nice balanced team. Oh boy, just crossed the halfway mark, and we're at 48 minutes. Gonna be a long one. Buckle in. Okay, we've got Logan, coach of the Alabama Crimson Hive. This, I feel like I don't have any strong opinions about this. A couple of fun things. Since he took Charizard X, Kartana, and Tapu Fini, all in his first 3 picks, he completed a Fairy Steel Dragon and Firewater Grass Core, all at the same time. 3 picks in, got both of the traditional cores done right off the bat. Speed tier wise, got a little bit of a drop off from the 70s and down. I'm gonna decide that if there's a drop off, 70 is the lowest you need to be. Because then the stuff that is at 60, that might be your big, strong, like offensive Pokemon, they probably weren't going to run speed at that point anyways, right? Like stuff in the 60s might run some speed. Ursaluna 52, not going to run speed. I'm going to say 70 is the cutoff. Although, that being said, really for this team, 81 is the lowest end. I cannot picture a world in which Skarmory is running any significant amount of speed. So, there's that. I'm a little bit out of breath because I took a pause to play with my dog. So, just catching up from that. Looking at what we got here. So, doubled up on a few types, or tripled up on ground types. Doubled on water, doubled on grass. Those are the ones that are jumping out at me. Doubled on steel and cart and Skarm, but different enough functions, I don't think it matters. Although, look at that surprisingly high defense stat, just on average. Finny, Pecharunt, Zard, Cart, Skarm, Ursaluna, Mudsdale, Quagsire. Quagsire doesn't have like an above average defense, but all of that combined, 110 average defense. I don't think we've seen like a lot of things at that point, especially for bulk. The only other highest like average I'm seeing is like this 105 attack. 110 defense is crazy high. It'd be hard to break through this team on that side of things. That being said, obviously has some weaknesses. Significant fire weaknesses. You got 4 Pokemon, pretty weak to fire. You got your Resistant Finny and Zard, which definitely can be taken advantage. Like, you can take advantage of those. He can take advantage of those. Like, he can take advantage of the fact that he can get those Pokemon in for free. And Quag, also very solid resist, but we've seen how many scary fire types are in the league. This could be something he might struggle to deal with. Ice, up and down. Like, 1 ice resist and it being Tapu Fini, I don't love that. I think that is a significant weakness of this team. There's not a lot of scary ice types, but there's just kind of some middle-of-the-road ice types, and he doesn't have a super solid way of dealing with them. So I don't love that. Those are the only red squares we have to deal with. I don't see anything else that super concerns me. Tapu Fini's tough as a defensive Pokemon because it doesn't have reliable recovery. Draining Kiss is better than it used to be. I think that's kind of interesting, but I also think there's some negative synergy between Charizard X and Tapu Fini. The Dragon-type moves that Charizard X wants to use, Dragon Claw, namely, and like occasionally Outrage, are weakened if the Misty Terrain is up. That's something to watch out for. It's not something that'll come up super often, but it could be a drawback for a team like this, because this team is not built for like hyper offense. This is, I think, a little bit more of a bulky offensive team. Serp's not hyper offense. Kartana obviously is, but you know, 1 hyper offense Pokemon does not a hyper offense team make. But this team is quite defensive with things like Quag, Mudsdale, Ursaluna, Skarmory, Tapu Fini, Pecharunt. This is a more defensive-oriented team for sure. I think this is a little bit more leaning bulky offense because of the things like Ursaluna, Slitherwing, and Charizard. But it's, yeah, this isn't the hyper offense teams that we've seen earlier in the draft, or even that we'll see later. But it's also not like the pure balance team, at least in my opinion, that Drew's team is. Yeah, nothing super remarkable about this team. I think that I'm excited to see Kartana and Serperior at work. Serperior is kind of an interesting case too because it doesn't get access to Hidden Power, which is going to be a significant drawback. Next we got my team. You know, I didn't do a lot of analysis while I was looking at this team, and now I'm seeing some big problems. I have a couple of ice resists, which makes me feel less bad about the fact that so much of my team's with ice. The rock of everything we've talked about. The water and fire are a big concern for me. Now looking at it, especially because I have Charizard Y, which is just going to make those fire type attacks all the more scary. Really my only true fire resist on this team. Blastoise, that doesn't have reliable recovery. Problem. Water, I'm a little less concerned about because Hydrapple is such a great switch into water types, although it can also be taken advantage of because water type Pokemon tend to have ice moves. But I will maintain that this is an offensive team, first and foremost, that has some good pivots. My defensive Pokemon are Corviknight, Slowking, Hydrapple's more bulky, and then Blastoise. I really have 3 defensive Pokemon on this team, and they're just designed to come in, take a hit, and get out, right? Dugtrio is going to be an important part of this team. Need to make sure I can trap the things I need to trap with Dugtrio, otherwise this team's going to kind of fall apart. Yeah, I already went over the weaknesses. Speed tier wise, I'm pretty happy. This gap is yucky, but it's also 14 points, which is within my minimum acceptable threshold, right? 15 points is where the gap is a problem. That's kind of a big gap, especially because this is a defensive Pokemon. But I'll remind you that Blastoise gets Shell Smash, and with the fact that there's quite a few teams that are actually weak to water, I'm not saying I won't run it, but also I'm acknowledging that this is a big drop off. But again, offensive team, a lot of turning. I got Namorous with U-turn, Sandy Shocks with Volt Switch, Urshifu single strike with U-turn, flip turn, U-turn, Chilly Reception. So out of my 11 Pokemon, what is that? 7 of them have pivoting that I don't think is unreasonable to run. So again, there is obvious issues with this team, that speed gap, these weaknesses. But the way the team is designed, I don't think it's as big of a deal as it's not a team that's this team is not gonna have a lot of battles that last 30 turns or more. I don't know. I'm not staking anything on that, but I don't think it's happening. I think we're looking at some quick battles here. Speaking of which, quick battles. Don't like this logo. It just harkens back to a time that I don't care for. Zeng. Yeah, so we got Mega Lopunny here. Let's take a look at this team. Also, on the faster end, in addition to that, he's got Galvantula, which is only going to exacerbate the speed differential here, okay? Mega Lopunny, very fast, very strong, very scary. Return and Frustration are back in the game. So, I mean, he's going to be running Return every week, except if he faces Kyle, in which case, then there's like the mental chess match. But Return for the most part. Return in close combat also gets like U-turn, fake out, quick attack, ice punch. I don't think it might not have gotten U-turn before. Maybe it had like high jump kick instead of close combat. I can't remember for certain. But that Scrappy Lopunny is nothing to be underestimated. Fantastic Pokemon. Gonna be really threatening here. Starmie, for a long time, was like I think the fastest water type in the game, or at least tied for it. The 100 special attacks is a little bit underwhelming, but Analytic makes it a lot stronger. Fantastic coverage, and rapid spin support, obviously very good. Gengar, incredibly scary, fairy killer. In addition to Ghost, we haven't seen a lot of Ghost resists on teams, and people are going to be regretting that once they have to face Gengar. Galvantula, a good Pokemon on its own, just due to the fact that 97 special attack isn't great, but Thunder is significantly stronger than Thunderbolt, and this can kind of fire him off with a lot less concerns than other Pokemon because it's 90, I want to say it's 91% accurate, or 93, some weird number like that, due to the compound eyes, in addition to the fact that this thing brings Sticky Web to a team. Victini, one of the greatest wall breakers in the game. Physical, special, it's got all the coverage it needs. In addition to the fact that it's going to be able to take the hits from walls, they're not going to be able to revenge kill it easily. So just firing off a Banded V-Create, or Glaciate, or Bolt Strike, or Zen Headbutt, or Psychic. Or what's that? I feel like it gets or Blue Flare. Energy Ball. It just gets so much important coverage to have. Victini is really difficult to deal with. Rillaboom. You'll notice all these Pokemon above it and most of the Pokemon below it are grounded. That means they're just going to be getting extra recovery from Rillaboom, and Rillaboom's got one of the best priority moves in the game. Now, Rillaboom has a little bit of negative synergy with Mamoswine here, weakening its Earthquakes. It's not an easy thing to really take advantage of, though. If you're switching in on a Pokemon that can take hits from Rillaboom, that's not usually going to be a Pokemon that Mamoswine is the one that specifically has to kill it with an Earthquake. You have plenty of other wall breakers up here that'll be able to deal with it. Togekiss, really good pivot, really good wall, and on top of that, you can still run it really offensively. Like, Nasty Plot Togekiss is no joke. Scarf Togekiss can win games regardless of matchup. Raging Bolt is very scary, so hard to switch into this Pokemon, in addition to the fact that it gets even more priority. And Blissey is like the ultimate, is one of the best special defensive pivots in the game, bar none. Just come in, take a special hit, teleport out. Brett's going to have so much momentum from Blissey. On top of that, he's got the ultimate late game win condition in King Gambit. Oh no, it's late in the game, but all my friends are dead. That means I basically get a choice band boost on top of whatever item I'm holding. And you have the bulk to be able to set up a Swords Dance, and now it's a Sucker Punch game down to the wire. Hopefully all of your Pokemon are strong enough to withstand. The team's really good. Typing-wise, yeah, missing out on a couple ground things, but like I talked about, Rillaboom's going to be able to mitigate that to a certain degree. Rock, not a scary offensive type. Otherwise, looking really solid, right? Well, there's something I wanted to look out for here. Somebody had mentioned it to me. I just want to verify. Oh, okay. Yeah, when I was going through and doing the data, I had said that fighting is the most prevalent offensive type in the league. Drew is the only person in the league that doesn't have more resist than he has weaknesses. I just wanted to come back and review that, because he does have 4 weaknesses, but he also does have 4 resists, and he's got such good defensive Pokemon. Yeah, I'm going to say it doesn't matter. I just wanted to check on that. Didn't have a lot to really say about it, but I just hadn't looked into it myself. Yeah, Brett's team's going to be pretty good. Moving on, we got Zach and the Dallas Drills. First of all, not noticing a lot of red down here. Just that ghost one. Granted, he's, I think, if Brett beats me, then Zach has to face a Gengar. Which maybe he'll be feeling a little less good about the fact that Chi-Yu is his only ghost resist. Then again, yeah, he has a Chi-Yu. Chi-Yu, something we have not seen in the league. It's going to be so incredibly threatening. And I just realized if I manage to make it past Brett and Victini with my multitude of fire weaknesses, I do have to face a Chi-Yu, which I don't love. Oh, that's disappointing. Okay, speed tier wise, looks great, looks solid. No complaints. You know, like I said, type wise, really good. Tornti, great pivot. Raikou, good pivot. Ogerpon gets U-turn, yes. Just like these 3 being fast and strong and pivoters. In addition to you have other pivoters down here like Alomola and Swampert and Ampharos. Gonna have opportunities to get your offensive Pokemon in. Altaria, kind of one of the best setup. I think, like, I've been using a lot of hyperbole in this, but a very good setup Pokemon. Really underratedly strong. Like, all of its stats are pretty solid, gonna give it opportunities to set up. Fairy Dragon don't do a lot to cover each other. Like, obviously the dragon weakness is covered by Fairy, but the Ice type weakness and Fairy type weakness from Dragon not covered by Fairy, and none of the weaknesses that Fairy have are covered by Dragon. So this is like an offensive Mega with less than stellar offensive stats, but can't underestimate it because of Pixelate, Return, and Hyper Voice, in addition to Draco Meteor, Outrage, Dragon Claw, Dragon Dance, Earthquake. like a myriad of moves that make this kind of a matchup nightmare. Metagross, fantastic Pokemon. Can be good defensively. Can be reliable as a kind of like a lead. That's what it mostly did back in past generations. Is it was a really solid lead with like Focus Sash or sometimes Custat Berry and just like Stealth Rock and Explosion, and just a really strong Pokemon on its own too. Alamalola, between Scald, Flip Turn, Wish, Protect, and Regenerator, this Pokemon is going to be tough to kill and really annoying to deal with. Swampert is the ultimate team player. Just the set that it used to run was, fully Fizz Def. Scald, Earthquake, Toxic, Protect. You could probably swap out Scald or Toxic or even Earthquake for Stealth Rock. And actually probably get rid of Scald, thinking about it. And it's just a Pokemon that's going to be able to take a decent amount of hits and wear down other Pokemon and get up rocks for you. It's just kind of a good player. That's the old set. I think nowadays you'd probably see like Stealth Rock, Flip Turn, Earthquake, whatever other move you want. Whether I think it might get knockoff for some reason. I feel like it looks like a Pokemon that gets knockoff, and I can't remember. Galarian Weezing in this. I haven't given a lot of thought to Galarian Weezing. I think it was something that I kind of skimmed over just because it's like the fairy type, which you need to have in the league, just because of some of the certain threats that are out there, namely the myriad of fighting types that are in the league, which I didn't even talk about Annihilape. There's nothing to say. Annihilape is a move as a Pokemon, and if you can play around the move, less of a big deal. If you can't play around the move, you're going to have a bad time. But Galarian Weezing, I think Neutralizing Gas could have some interesting implications in the league. I can't think of any specific ones, but I bet you at some point Zach runs Neutralizing Gas and it's really annoying for somebody. Ampharos, really good slow pivot. Shelmet, it does one thing. It checks a couple of specific Pokemon, and that's all it does. It's also, in no small part, here's a meme pick. So glad to see it back on Zach's team. Like I said, no major weaknesses to be really concerned about. I think that's a wrap on Zach's team. We're getting down to the end. Sorry I'm kind of rushing here towards the tail end of this. Because I am realizing like I'm burning through stuff. But a lot of these are Pokemon and not a lot to say other than these teams are good. Talk about good teams. Look at this. Where's the red squares? Not there. Dakota is deliberate in his type selections. Now, I talked to Dakota a lot before we did the draft, and we both talked a lot about, I don't know if defense is the way to win in this metagame because the meta is so kind of geared towards offense with a lot of the previously banned Pokemon that we have brought back. Dakota agreed with me at the time and then proceeded to draft this incredibly bulky team. The most offensive Pokemon on this team is Urshifu, and it has 100 HP, 100 defense. So this is, I think, potentially another experimental team, just in the sense that it goes against the meta so drastically. This is not a stall team, obviously. Definitely more defensive oriented, but this is a bulky offense team to a significant degree. The frailest thing on this team is Glamora, and that's probably mostly going to be there to get up hazard, start wearing things down. Now, Dakota's got to be very careful about how he plays this team, because I used to play a lot of bulky offense. Granted, he's got a lot of pivoting, which is good, but one of the problems with like Mega Scizor, Pokemon I absolutely love, super excited to see it back here. Mega Scizor is very defensive, with 140 defense 100 special defense, really good defensive typing. The set that is run on it very often is Bullet Punch, U-Turn, Roost, and then another move of your choice, whether that be Swords Dance, Defog, Knockoff, Close Combat. Pick your poison. But those first 3 moves are really important. And Mega Scizor is kind of the poster child for what I want to point out with a bulky offense team that has a lot of pivoting. Because I think it's... So, you're going to bring in Scizor on a physically offensive Pokemon that you can hit. It's maybe something that is firing off, I don't know, like a Knockoff or an Iron Head, something like that. Like maybe you bring it in on a King Gambit. King Gambit doesn't love facing off against Scizor. Now, King Gambit needs to fear just taking a lot of damage from a U-turn, a potential close combat. But you switched in on it, and the Iron Head did, I don't know, let's say 20%. Maybe that's not the best example given the fact that it doesn't matter. Let's say it's a different Pokemon. You switched in, you took 30%. Scizor has a choice to make here. It can either U-turn out, predicting a switch, which is fine because you can keep up momentum and get another Pokemon in. And start to try to put somebody in the vortex, right? Try to keep cycling them through and have them not be able to get momentum until you get the ideal matchup. You can do that, that's fine. The other thing to try to do is roost off, so that way you can keep playing this game long term. I think that is the key, choosing whether or not you're going to recover with your physically defensive or not physically defensive specifically, but whether you're going to recover with your pivots or you're going to pivot with your pivots. And I think that's a difficult, like you need to really strike the balance. Like Scizor and Zapdos are the biggest examples of that. Incineroar, Sylveon, Tangrowth, they're all pivots, but they don't have, either don't have a pivoting move or reliable recovery. Tangrowth obviously has Regenerator, so it doesn't have a pivoting move, but obviously Tangrowth is the Pokemon that you can come in, take a hit, and then you're just going to try to find something else. All that to say, Dakota, I think, is going to have to read his opponent's play very carefully, because either he needs to click the right move on his Pokemon, or he needs to make an aggressive double to try to keep up momentum. It's going to be very important that he does this. If he can do those things well, this is a team that's going to be very difficult to beat. If he struggles at those things, on a bulky offense team, once one domino falls, the rest start to fall, because these Pokemon are designed to... Each Pokemon is going to be designed to take hits from a specific Pokemon. Once that falls, then the responsibility is spread out among the other ones, and it makes the load heavier on them, and they start to fall faster. So, this team is about wearing down the opponents, get up your hazards, force them to switch a lot, keep hazards off your side of the field. Don't think this team has the best options to do that, due to the fact that it's got 3 defoggers, 1 spinner, and that's also the same as your hazard setter. I guess Golurk also gets hazards. Clever use, specific use of Glimmora and reading the opponent. If he can do that, Dakota is going to be a very difficult team to beat. I think this team has maybe the highest, I think this team has the highest ceiling, but also potentially a very low floor. Not the lowest floor. I think there's other more flawed teams. But barrier for entry with this team, the skill level's high. But Dakota is experienced enough to pull it off. It's a very specifically designed team, and I wish him the best of luck. We got Darren and the Maryland Mystics take off from a hiatus, and look at that, all green boxes down here. We love to see it. So not a lot to talk about from that perspective. Let's talk about the fear that everyone's gonna have. Koko, Lucha. These two Pokemon, they lived in infamy in Generation 7. Two of the scariest combo Pokemon that you can see. Tapu Koko, kind of an all-around useful glue guy on a team. between the like pivoting, decent damage that it does, utility as in things like screens and defog and just pivoting. Fantastic. You'd also see a lot with Lando T, another fantastic pivot, not too affected by the fact that electric Pokemon are going to be a little bit scarier because of your electric terrain you're setting up. These three by themselves are like a scary, you know, I was going to say quartet, that's not the right word, trio. Combine the fact that Tapu Koko is going to be able to set up electric terrain for Iron Moth's Quark Drive and Iron Thorn's Quark Drive to take advantage of. That is a whole new dimension to this team. Very difficult to deal with. Zarude doesn't strike me as being anything in particular, like any particular synergies, other than the fact that it's another pretty fast, pretty strong U-turner to add to this squad to give him more ideal matchups. Get in this guy, Mega Medicham. We talked about some very strong Pokemon in here, just like base level strong. With the Gorilla Tactics Darmanitan. Obviously a big drawback to it, but unbelievably strong. And then we talked about the Mega Mawile. A little bit more attack, but at a base, this Mega Medicham, really good offensive typing, additionally, way more speed. Fastest of the other Pokemon that I've talked about. This Pokemon is going to be so hard to take hits from. You got to be really careful around this Pokemon. This can just crush like stall teams or bulky teams if you let the wrong domino fall. And then on top of that, he just threw a whole bunch of good defensive Pokemon out here. Melodic, Weezing, Hisuian Goodra, Orthworm. Don't love Orthworm, but you know, throw in another ground immunity alongside Weezing and Lando and Hawlucha. Not a bad thing to have when you have Pokemon like Iron Moth and Iron Thorns and Hisuian Goodra around. You need to... Oh, and Tapu Koko for that matter. You have a lot of important Pokemon that are weak to ground, and you also have a lot of Pokemon that are able to come in on those ground types. So it is very carefully put together. A lot of threats on this team. Garen, former champion, really hoping that we can see him return to form, and I think he's got a team that could potentially do it. Whew, okay, that was a long one. Let's hop into the bracket and take a look at it. Now, this is the loser's bracket. If you, one of these red games up here, you're playing in one of these red games, and you lose, you're going to go down here. So game A, the loser of game A, is going to become LA right here. And you're going to be waiting to see the loser of this game. So, lose, you have week 2 on a bye. You win, play week 2, these orange games, and then you're also going to, and then if you have to win there, or you get your first bye week, okay? So, if you win on an even numbered week, you get to rest on the odd numbered weeks. That's how it's going to work. You could potentially be playing a lot of games. If you are playing one of these red games and you win and then lose in week 2, then you're probably playing 6 weeks if you want to get a shot at 3rd place, which is kind of a slog to get there. But look, it's all about getting those games in. You want to play as many games as you can. I think this all makes sense. Looking at Drew and Zach, we covered them pretty close to back to back. No, never mind, we didn't. But Drew, that bulky offense team. Zach, I call him bulky offense. No, he's more balanced. Zach is, I'd say, also pretty balanced. Not quite as much. This is maybe a little. This is maybe more bulky offense than the balance. But that should be a really interesting matchup. Me and Brett, I feel like I talked a little bit about that, but I don't want to talk too much about it because really I think it's going to be me getting my shit pushed in by Victini. Kyle and Papku and I gave an unfortunate, direct, matchup that might happen. This is the Rain team versus Logan. It's not an easy Rain matchup, but like I said, I think that this Rain team is flawed in the fact that Politoed is the main setter. And if Logan can take advantage of that, I think a lot of this starts to fall apart. Although I did say that this team is very scary on its own, even outside of Rain. But I think if it's built for rain mode and it loses Politoed, then I don't think it functions very well. So he's got to be very strategic about how he's going to make that work out. I think that's all I want to talk about right now. There's not going to be any ad drops all season. If you didn't make your week 0 ad drops, you're done. Okay? Because there's too few of games, and it's too easy once, especially after like the first round of games are done, to kind of tailor your team to your bracket. So we're not allowing that. I think that's all I got to talk about. Thank you guys for listening. I know this one was a long one, but hey, you guys said you wanted one of the classic long Jeremy rambling oh my god, podcasts. I've lost my brain. Yeah, thank you guys for listening. Lots to talk about at the end of the season after we kind of figure out how we like this setup. This is a very powerful draft. Just top to bottom, a lot of people seem to be very powerful. I don't know how other people feel about that. We're going to have to kind of review it. Kind of see where we want to land when we move forward to season 24 in early 2026. Thank you all for listening. See you months from now, probably. Goodbye.